Hello, I'm back. So last time I posted was after my oncology appointment, and which was mostly really good news. It was really encouraging. I was a little disappointed that it wasn't the shiny bill of health that I was hoping on, but I've been patient with my body and patient with myself, and accepting where I'm at emotionally and physically as well. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster after my oncology appointment, and there's no more cancer in my belly. Then I could be cleared to have the colostomy or have the stoma reversed. So I was referred to a GI surgeon, and that appointment was not as pleasant. It did not go how I expected it to at all. The GI surgeon seems to think that I still have a tumor in my rectum, and which, as lovely as that sounds, that really sucked to hear. I actually don't believe her. Oh, I'm not saying I don't believe her. I'm saying I don't have complete confidence in her read of her interpretation of my medical chart and of my scans. And I only say that not to discount her in any way, but she's not familiar with my case. Our appointment was at the end of her day. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So my assumption is that she probably worked all day and then had her consults at the end. And that my case probably came across her desk about 5 minutes before she talked to me. And she gave me her best opinion that she could, which was also, it was shocking actually. What she recommended was shocking. So let's say I do actually still have a tumor in my rectum. Her suggestion was to just remove the whole rectum, which is kind of exactly the opposite of what I wanted to talk about to begin with. So I was just completely dumbfounded during the whole appointment, the telemed appointment that I had with her. I just started crying because it was not only was it not what I wanted to hear, but that was her only suggestion, was to just fucking remove the whole thing. I was really disappointed in that. And I don't know if she's just young in her career, or that's protocol, or her interpretation of my scans were that drastically different than the interpretation that my oncologist, who, I've had this oncologist now for about at least 6 months, probably 8 months. So I do trust his opinion much more. So that being said, I still had to go through the emotional aspect. Even though logically I know that this is just one person's opinion, and I don't trust it at all, actually. It just doesn't make any sense. And I'll get a third opinion and a fourth opinion, or however many opinions that I need to get one that I can feel 100% behind, and maybe I actually do still have a tumor in my rectum. But if I don't, then I should be able to go ahead with the surgery that I need to have done. So this is something that has to get ironed out, and this unfortunately is one of the aspects of, even though both my oncologist and the surgeon both work out of the same hospital system, it's a ginormous hospital system, and I'm just falling through the cracks right now. And unfortunately, this is the part where you have to advocate for yourself, and you have to make up your own mind. And people are fallible, and doctors are busy, and they have 1,000 patients just like you, some worse, some better, all on the spectrum. And, so it's this balance of being compassionate and accepting and sort of open-minded and not being judgmental about your medical practitioners, and then balancing that with also being really, really critical of your healthcare practitioners and making sure that you're getting the answers, that your questions are being answered properly, and that whatever treatment you decide to do, that you have as much information as possible. I mean, you really can't have too much information, I think, when it comes to this kind of thing. But like I said, I still had to deal with it emotionally, even though logically I knew that, I'll get another doctor's opinion and, we'll move from there. And I know what I believe to be true. And even though I know that, I still had to deal with it emotionally. Like, it still hurt to hear that. And even though I know better. So it's odd. I think I had mentioned in my post before that going through cancer will break you wide open in a good way if you let it. It will also break you into 1,000 little pieces. And when you are broken, knowing that, or when you're feeling broken, knowing that that's not always going to be the case, that it will turn around and it will change, and that, you might get bad news one day and then get good news the next day. And just being willing to roll with that and to go through that and to be patient with yourself, not just physically, but also emotionally. And of course, reach out for help if you feel that you need it. Fast forward, I got through the surgeon appointment and sort of regained my balance and got back to, I don't want to say reasonable feelings, but I got back to feeling like myself again, emotionally. Unfortunately, I still, since I've been in California, have been really, really sick. And I suspect it's altitude sickness in the beginning, but usually altitude sickness doesn't last. Usually you acclimate, not always. I actually do know a handful of people who just have never acclimated and probably never will. Actually, people who have lived here for a very long time at altitude and then all of a sudden have become very sensitive to it. So I think part of that is what's happening, but also I ended up in the ER yesterday. As stubborn as I am, I was really hoping to not end up in the ER, but I had been sick for a week. I've been vomiting a lot. Every time I eat, it hurts, and I was getting to the point where I couldn't sleep. And just miserable, nauseous, and sick every day. Probably like a level 7. Like, I haven't been able to work. So it's been concerning to me. And even though I am going back to Washington, I just felt like something needed to be done. So anyways, my friend talked me into going into the ER, and I did, and was very glad that I did. In the ER this time, we didn't do any scans, but I did have a GI, I would say like a former GI surgeon, now does general surgery, but GI was sort of his specialty. He just happened to be on call on a Sunday and came in to see me, and I'm very familiar with this doctor and I trust his opinion 1,000%. And he quickly found a peristomal hernia in my gut, which would 100% explain why the at altitude, there's a lack of air pressure, so air tends to expand, and if you have air in your gut, which we all do, then your gut tends to expand. If your gut is compromised, like mine is right now, that could cause some discomfort. And it also makes sense, some of the sort of physical symptoms that I have, like I can actually palpate the hernia. I just didn't know that's what I was palpating when I would change my situation down here. I noticed that my anatomy had changed. Anyways, so it kind of sounds like bad news, but it's actually kind of not. So at least now I have 2 reasons to have surgery, which doesn't sound like a great thing, but you know, I have to have surgery to have the hernia fixed. So it's like, why not just reverse the stoma, and also at the same time the hernia ought to just by default get repaired. So this has turned into a little bit of a complicated case. Also, I'm picking up my life and moving it 1,200 miles away and into a new medical system. So that, I don't know if that complicates things or if it actually makes things better. I'll be going into a different hospital system, different, new set of eyes, new set of brains, hopefully, that will be attending to my case. And then also I will be home and I'll have support of my family. If I do have, I will have to have surgery one way or the other. So anyways, this is the part where I just have to trust that it will work out in the best possible way. And even though I was really, really upset with my surgeon's consult, and that I fully expected to be preparing for surgery around this time, and then now I'm not. So now I'm actually free to go home earlier, which is a huge blessing, a huge, huge blessing. So I might only be here for another week. And the next time I'll post, it'll be from Washington, and I'll have more information by then. I do have another appointment coming up in a couple of days with my original oncologist, just to try and get some sort of consensus between what the surgeon said and what my oncologist thinks, and hoping that, I'm actually not in my hometown. I'm in a different town right now. It's just, there are some characters. Holy shit. Where was I? Oh, my God, that totally distracted me. Anyways. So yeah, just trusting, like I said, just trusting that things are going to work out in the best possible way that they can and they will. And I already know that to be the case. That's been this whole lesson, not this whole lesson, but the one thing that I've learned in the last, 14 months is that you might get good news one day and then get bad news the next, and then get good news and then get bad news, and hopefully that good news and bad news sort of follows an upward trend and continues to sort of get better and better. Like, my bad news days are nothing like they used to be. So my life is, it's improved tenfold since I've got my original diagnosis, and that's what I have to keep in mind. And it's not a straight line. Healing is not a straight line. And I've always held fast to the idea that even when you get a prognosis, that to not let that limit you, and to trust in your body and to trust in the process and to trust in yourself, in your own intuition. When it comes to your healthcare, when it comes to your own feelings, to how you're processing. You would think by now, after 14 months, that I would sort of become used to maybe having bad days physically or having bad days emotionally. And actually the opposite has been true. Like I've said before, cancer both breaks you wide open and it can also break you down. And both can be really, really beneficial if you allow it to be. And I've become so much more sensitive to the information that I receive, and my heart has become more vulnerable. I don't want to say vulnerable. It just feels things differently and deeper than it used to before cancer. So when I say that cancer heals you, this is what I'm talking about. Being able to feel again and being able to accept parts of myself that I couldn't accept before, or that I didn't think were necessary to accept, and much less embrace. It's a trip. If you're going through anything like this, just if you're at the beginning of your journey, and I hate to say that word, but if you're at the beginning of this path that you're on, and you're sitting in a hospital bed and you're scared shitless, either literally or in my case, figuratively, or in my case, quite literally, know that it gets better and then it also gets worse. And if you're lucky, it makes you more sensitive to your own life and to your own needs and to your own sense of being, and it makes you more sensitive to the importance of you and the importance of the people around you and the importance of your body. And when I first got diagnosed, I had this realization that if my body's not here, I'm not either. And it seems like such a simple, straightforward way to view things. Obviously, it's a duh statement. But at the same time, it just never occurred to me. It never occurred to me. I'd never had my body be sick in a way that would cost me my existence. Anyways, I think I'm going to end it there. And if you're just starting your journey, roll with it. Just roll with it as best you possibly can. And share your story. And listen to other people's stories. Listen to the stories that are the same as the outcome that you want. And let that be your own narrative. That's all I got for now. Bye.